Imagine you're playing hide and seek, right?
Yeah.
But the stakes are global military power and players. They're the most advanced, supposedly invisible things on Earth. What actually happens when something that's designed to be completely invisible, well, suddenly isn't. It's this high-stakes game, always evolving cat and mouse.
Definitely.
So today, we're taking a deep dive into a scenario. It's hypothetical, but also feels incredibly plausible.
It really does.
Okay, June 21, 2025. U.S. B-2 stealth bombers. They're right in the middle of a critical operation, deep strike, targeting Iranian nuclear sites.
Right.
And then, out of the blue, a public claim pops up online. Chinese military satellites spotted them, detected them.
Yeah.
Now, if that's true, I mean, that could fundamentally shake everything we think we know about military power balance.
Absolutely. Our goal today is really to unpack the background of this alleged event. Look at the tech involved on both sides. You know, the famous B-2 versus China's rapidly growing satellite capabilities. And then explore what that means, the potential impacts on the global military balance. We also need to ask, why might the U.S. have been surprised by something like this?
A good question.
And then look ahead, future applications, how the U.S. might respond. Really, this whole deep dive is about getting to grips with the huge implications of space surveillance getting so much better and what that means for, well, future conflict.
Right. Let's set the scene then. Operation Midnight Hammer, as we're calling it. So June 21, 2025. The U.S. reportedly hits key Iranian nuclear facilities, places like Fordo, Natanz, Isfahan.
The big ones.
Exactly. And this wasn't, a small raid. We're talking 7 B-2 bombers. They delivered 14 GBU-57B bombs. Yeah. Those things are massive. Bunker busters, basically.
Designed to go deep underground.
Yeah. The whole mission, it was huge, took about 30 hours, involved over 125 aircraft overall, all designed, of course, to be super stealthy.
Naturally.
But then, right after this happens, there's this post on X from @ABSamson1. And it publicly claims that China's Changwon satellite technology, CGSTL.
Right, using their Jilin-1 constellation.
Yeah, they hadn't just captured images, but they shared images of the B-2s taking off for the mission.
And, while this specific June 21st event is hypothetical, the idea itself isn't totally out there. It feels plausible.
How so?
Well, remember, just a month earlier, May 22nd, 2025, Newsweek actually reported on Miser Vision satellites imaging US B-2s and other jets down at Diego Garcia.
Oh, right. I remember that.
So that incident, it kind of lends weight to the general concept, doesn't it? That satellite detection of these assets is, well, possible, even if it wasn't specifically tied to this June 21st scenario.
That previous report definitely puts it in perspective. So does that suggest this kind of satellite detection is maybe a more immediate threat than people thought? Or still sort of over the horizon?
I'd lean towards the former. It suggests the speed things are moving at, well, it means the horizon might be much closer than maybe planners anticipated, especially for optical imaging.
Okay, let's get into the tech then. The B-2 Spirit. It's iconic, commissioned way back in '97.
Yeah, a long time ago now, relatively speaking.
Subsonic flying wing, designed purely for stealth. The radar cross-section, you mentioned it, it's tiny. About 0.1 square meters, like a big bird on radar.
Incredible engineering.
Achieved with special materials, radar-absorbent stuff, and clever ways to reduce heat signature engines buried inside, special coatings. It really is a masterpiece of avoiding detection.
It absolutely is. But here's the crucial point, I think. Its stealthiness is primarily focused on beating radar. That was the main threat when it was designed.
Right.
It's not inherently invisible to optical cameras or, infrared sensors on a satellite looking down. In fact, there's a known vulnerability visual detection if you get within about 20 nautical miles.
Oh, right.
So if we know it can be seen visually up close, the big question is, why would being spotted by a satellite's camera optically be such a big surprise?
Interesting point. And then on the other side, you've got China's Jilin-1 constellation. This isn't science fiction. It's been up there working since 2014, providing high-res optical images. And China's plans are, well, ambitious. They're aiming for 300 of these satellites by 2025. That is a lot of eyes looking down.
It really is. And you connect that to their research. China's pouring money into advanced stuff, too, like ghost imaging. Using quantum sensors.
Ghost imaging, what's that?
It's pretty wild. It uses entangled photons, basically, to see a target without directly shining a bright light on it. A totally different way to potentially track stealthy things.
Wow.
And they're expecting prototypes, maybe as early as 2025. It really makes you question the whole future of stealth, doesn't it? I mean, can anything really stay hidden if these sensor technologies keep improving like this?
Okay, so we've got the tech, the players, the scenario. But the real crunch is, so what? Why does this matter? What does it actually mean for global power? The B-2, it's more than just a plane, right? It's a symbol, a key part of U.S. military dominance.
Exactly.
Detecting it could seriously shift that whole U.S.-China military balance.
You're hitting on something fundamental there. China's growing satellite network, it offers almost real-time global monitoring. That's a massive boost to their intelligence game.
Right.
And that has, well, several big impacts. First, intelligence advantage. It's not just seeing things. It's about potentially taking away the element of surprise. That's been a U.S. advantage for decades.
Underrunning a key tactic.
Completely. Second, target locking. Better satellite data means they can potentially acquire targets more accurately, making their own strike capabilities more precise. Third, there's a huge psychological deterrence factor here. If China can publicize detections like this, it shows off their tech, sure, but it also potentially deters the U.S. from acting, because the cloak of invisibility might be gone. It undermines that plausible deniability.
That's operations riskier.
Much riskier. And fourth, there's the risk of kicking off a space arms race. If the U.S. feels its stealth advantage is eroding, they might push harder on anti-satellite tech.
Which could escalate things dangerously.
Exactly. This could really change the old power dynamics, especially like we saw with Diego Garcia, if China can reliably monitor key U.S. bases and assets.
So, given how much intelligence the U.S. gathers, why would this kind of detection, even if it's plausible, actually catch them off guard? Was it just underestimating how fast maybe civilian satellite tech could get this good?
I think that's probably the crux of it. Yes, the B-2 is built to beat radar, but the speed that commercial satellite constellations like Jilin-1 have improved, particularly in resolution and coverage, maybe combined with advanced AI for sifting through images.
Right, the analysis part.
Yeah, that combination likely just outpaced some U.S. assumptions. It's maybe less about a sudden flaw in the B-2 and more about the surprising sophistication of the eyes watching it, especially eyes based on essentially civilian-grade tech that's been scaled up. That could definitely be a genuine surprise.
Okay, so looking ahead then, if this is the direction things are moving, how might China use these capabilities in, say, a potential future conflict?
Well, the applications could be pretty wide-ranging. You could see real-time tracking of U.S. force movements, giving them unprecedented situational awareness.
Knowing where things are constantly.
Precisely. That obviously enhances their target locking, maybe even for moving targets, not just fixed sites. The psychological deterrence that would likely continue. They could keep publicizing things to shape perceptions.
Need pressure on.
Exactly. We might also see them integrating the satellite data with their radar systems, building a more layered, comprehensive surveillance network, kind of fusing everything together.
Makes sense.
And there's even research further out, perhaps, into detecting stealth aircraft by looking for the tiny electromagnetic interference they cause just by flying through the air.
Wow, that's subtle.
Very subtle. But all these things point towards China developing potentially much more sophisticated strategies for future conflicts.
It's a bit staggering to think about. How does a military superpower like the U.S. even start to adapt when a core advantage, stealth, might be getting chipped away? Especially for crucial assets like the B-2 and its successor, the B-21.
It's a major challenge. The U.S. likely has several paths they're exploring or will explore. One is developing new coatings or materials, but this time focused on reducing optical and infrared visibility. A different kind of stealth for a different kind of sensor.
Adapting the cloak.
Right. They'll almost certainly boost their own space surveillance, too. More satellites, better sensors, to understand the threat and maybe counter it. See what China's doing, essentially.
Fight fire with fire, in orbit.
Potentially. Then there's the more aggressive option, anti-satellite capabilities. But as we said, that's hugely risky. It could easily escalate into a space conflict, which nobody really wants.
A dangerous road.
Very. And finally, they can adjust how they operate, using more decoys, perhaps, altering flight paths, mission timing, maybe relying more on different kinds of assets, tactical adjustments.
And we know the U.S. is already investing heavily, right? The B-21 Raider is supposed to have its first flight tests in 2025, plus ongoing upgrades to space surveillance. It really is a race.
It absolutely is a constant race to maintain that technological edge.
So this deep dive, it really underscores a key point. China's rapid advances in space surveillance, they represent a truly significant shift. one that could potentially reshape military balances around the world.
Yeah, I think that's the core takeaway. What's undeniable is that space is becoming vastly more important militarily, and adaptation for everyone is absolutely crucial. The really big question now is, how does warfare itself continue to change in this orbital domain as these capabilities spread?
And it leaves you wondering, as satellites get sharper and more numerous, what does stealth even mean anymore? In a world that's becoming, in some ways, more transparent from above, how does that reshaping of invisibility change international relations? Maybe even how we define security itself. Definitely something to chew on long after we wrap up here.